I sat on a frost-covered bench just outside the cemetery, a steaming cup of black coffee in my hands. Dawn had only begun to unfurl across the quiet valley, its pale light cutting through the last wisps of night. The cold was sharp. Each breath felt like inhaling glass, biting deep into my chest. I was barely 600 meters from where they buried her. No flowers in hand. No tears in my eyes. Not because I didn't care, but because by the time she died, the grieving had already happened. Quietly. Long ago. Her name was Elise. My wife for just shy of a decade. The death certificate said, accidental carbon monoxide poisoning. The car had been left running in the garage during a snowstorm. The silent killer had crept in, colorless and invisible, swallowing her and her lover in their sleep. The police softened their voices when they called to inform me, expecting devastation. I thanked them politely, hung up, and went back to my tea. Grief, they say, comes in waves. But for me, it arrived like a scalpel, sharp, swift, and clean. One cut. No bleeding. Just an empty silence that had been there long before the call. Elise hadn't always been unfaithful. There was a time when her laugh lit up rooms, when our promises still meant something. That was before the money changed our lives, before the estate, the social circles, and before her daughter Clara became a carbon copy of her mother's bitterness. Clara, my stepdaughter, wielded her cruelty like a blade. Her smiles always felt like the kind that preceded a trap. "You'll never be my father," she once sneered at me across the dinner table, each syllable laced with venom. I endured her, not out of kindness but out of devotion, to the woman I thought Elise still was. I had ignored the signs. Elise's unexplained late nights, the faint scent of unfamiliar cologne on her scarves, the detachment in her kisses. I chalked it up to stress, to routine, to whatever excuse was easier than the truth. But children, especially cruel ones, are often the first to speak plainly. One evening, Clara let the truth slip like a blade across my throat. She looked at me with a smirk and said, "Mom's just using you. She's been seeing someone for months. You're the idiot funding it." She laughed. I didn't. I didn't barge into Elise's room demanding the truth. No theatrics. I became a ghost in my own house, watching, collecting. She changed the codes on her phone, grew secretive. But she wasn't as careful as she thought. One night, she left her tablet charging on the counter. No passcode. A digital Pandora's box. Messages flowed like poison. "Last night was amazing. I can't bear letting him touch me anymore. We'll be gone soon. He won't even see it coming." Attached were photos, rumpled hotel beds, candlelit dinners, and a silver bracelet I'd given Elise glittering on the chest of a man I'd never met. His name was Shane. Mechanic. Ordinary, forgettable, until he helped plan my ruin. They plotted to drain our joint accounts, to disappear and leave me behind with nothing but legal ash and whispers. What they didn't know was that I had already begun playing my own game. I moved quietly. I restructured our finances, funneled assets into irrevocable trusts, rewrote the will with surgical precision. I documented everything. Her infidelity, Clara's verbal assaults, Elise's smirking late-night calls when she assumed I was asleep. 3 weeks before her death, I told Elise I'd be away for a 3-day seminar. She barely looked up from her phone. "Take your time," she muttered. She thought I was clueless. I knew she'd invite Shane over. I knew they'd drink, laugh, maybe plot one final move. What I didn't foresee was the weather. A brutal storm swept in the night I left. The garage, packed tight with snowdrifts, sealed like a tomb. The car left idling to keep them warm became their undoing. By morning they were gone. Just like that, lifeless in each other's arms. I didn't attend the funeral, sent no flowers. I wore no mourning black. Instead I met with my lawyer. The will that Elise had once signed without reading came into play. A clause stated that any proof of infidelity nullified her claims on the estate. Everything defaulted to me. Clara had no idea. In the days after her mother's death, Clara celebrated. She posted online about a fresh start, about how she'd be inheriting the mansion. She hosted parties. wore Elise's gowns. She lived like a queen in a house that was never hers. 3 weeks later I returned. I opened the front door with the same key I never gave up. Clara was lounging in the living room, champagne in hand, laughing with a friend. Her expression died the moment she saw me. "What are you doing here?" she snapped. I smiled, calm and precise. "You have 20 minutes to pack your things." She laughed, thinking I was bluffing, until the sheriff stepped through the doorway, eviction notice in hand. Every paper signed. Every document legal. "Ironclad," he screamed. Cursed me. Called me every name her mother would have approved of. But it didn't matter. The car she drove, leased in Elise's name, was towed within the hour. The college fund she thought existed. Fabrication. The inheritance. I watched as she sat on the curb, one overstuffed duffel bag at her feet, her phone dying in her lap. No friends to call. No safety net. Just the hollow shell of the empire she thought she'd inherited. As for me, I disappeared. I bought a cabin by a lake, far from the city and the weight of old memories. There's no internet, no cell service. Just the sound of wind through pine and the crackle of a fire at night. People ask if I'm lonely. I tell them solitude is a gentler companion than betrayal. Sometimes I sit by the hearth with a bourbon in hand and reflect. Not on Elise. Not even on Clara. But on how grief never really struck me like it should. There was no wave. No spiral. Just that one quiet moment. A single clean stab and then peace.